This is an audio recording of Kensington Effect, written by Drinking Bear, as read by the Drinking Bear, with accompaniment from the Bard. Gather. Chapter 3.
The roar of a motor passing by their car shook Ashley from her dozing rest. She looked about with shuddering breath, her eyes squinting against the illumination of passing streetlights. Her uncontrolled breaths caused wisps of cold to swirl outward until she looked to her left and saw Marina. She calmed then, swallowing hard as she steadied her nerves. The other girl gripped the steering wheel lightly, making subtle shifts as she looked ahead. Without turning her head, Marina smiled a little. "Hey, you awake?" Ashley cleared her throat and pulled her arms around herself. Yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to fall asleep." Marina spared a glance to her right, still smiling. "Don't apologize. I figure this has been kind of a big day for you, so I understand if you're feeling kind of tired." With a bashful grin, Ashley lifted a hand to run her fingertips through the feathers along the top of her head. Yeah, I guess so. It's been a while since I didn't feel like I needed to worry about someone staring. I knew this would be good for you." "Thanks again, Mary," Ashley said, letting her hands drop down into her lap. "I'm glad you convinced me to go." The two of them continued to sit in silence for several long minutes, with only the sound of the car thumping across the highway and the occasional car passing in the opposite direction, headlights briefly illuminating the cab of Marina's car. They were passing close to an intersection, and Marina rolled the car to a stop, letting the car idle at the red signal. Far behind her, she could see Bobby's old green Mustang turn at a previous intersection, slowly drifting out of sight. "Hey," Marina said, making conversation while waiting for the light to change. "Would you like to hang out tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon? I gotta help my mom with moving some stuff in and out of our storage unit in the morning, but if you wanted..." It was another several seconds of silence. The light turned green and the engine hummed as Marina pulled forward through the intersection. Ashley looked at her with a genuine smile. I'd like that," she spoke softly. "I don't know that I'd be up for going anywhere, but I'm sure my parents would love it if someone came to visit me. I haven't had many friends over for a long time." Marina tried to suppress her grin at that. "Cool," she spoke. "You think around 4 o'clock would be good? You want me to bring anything?" "Oh, no, we've got everything, I think." She fidgeted with her hands, fingers circling each other. I guess I could show you how to make a character? Teach you how the game works so we can all be ready for it when we get together again week after next?" Inwardly, Marina groaned. Nerd stuff. She'd already felt outcast at high school after she dropped out of her track team and started gaining weight, but at least it wasn't like her other friends would be there. Some of the social pressure would be taken off her at least. Well, all of it, really. Ashley didn't attend public school anymore. Lionel had gone to one of the Avalon Academies for the Empowered, and even graduated. Megan apparently wasn't even local, with her ability to teleport and its apparent range, and Bobby went to a different school than Marina. No one in the group had any association with any of her other friends. "Sounds good," Marina replied, trying hard not to let the strain in her voice show. Is there anything in particular I'll need?" Ashley seemed to perk up. Her usual nervousness seemed partially abated. "Ooh, you'll need some dice of your own, and we'll need character sheets. I've got all the books we need, and, I should ask the others which edition we'll be playing, and, we can worry about the dice later. I have plenty of my own." Hearing Ashley's excitement, Marina couldn't help but smile. She'd kind of gone to this meeting hoping to get the younger girl out of her shell. After a few block meetings where she'd left her parents to talk to the other teens, she'd found Ashley alone in a side room and had started talking to her. She felt for her and how her changed appearance had made her ostracized, forced her to drop out of public school. Maybe she sympathized with her a little. The recent changes in her life hadn't left her to stand out so much, but she had changed herself. Physically, mentally, emotionally. She knew the isolation her Kensington effect had made her feel. To find someone else to connect to just felt right. And if she could make the other girls' change even a tiny bit more bearable, maybe her own problems wouldn't feel so big. She had once been on the top spots of her school's track team. When her effect had manifested, she knew she wouldn't pass another physical. They screened for people with powers. It had been hard for her to tell her mom and dad that she didn't want to do it anymore. She didn't even have a good reason. She just told them she couldn't do it anymore. They supported her, but they never knew the real reason why. Without the exercise and the competition, the shift in her physical appearance couldn't be stopped. She'd started to become depressed. It only compounded the problem. She realized she was gripping the steering wheel too tightly when she started to turn onto a street off of the highway. She almost bumped the curb, but calmly slowed herself enough to miss it by a mere inch. She breathed heavily through her nose, internalizing the gasp she felt coming when she'd seen the streetlight coming too close to the front of her car. "We can do something else if you aren't interested," Ashley said, making Marina realize she hadn't spoken for several minutes. Oh, no," Marina chuckled. "Sorry, I must be getting tired. I'm just zoning, I guess." Ashley gave a sheepish smile, folding her hands in her lap. Okay, sorry I distracted you, but at least we're almost home, right?" "Right," Marina answered, looking up the road to the approaching cul-de-sac. Ashley's house was somewhere along the right-hand side. Her own home would be just a few doors down. She could already see that the driveway was empty. Her dad's car would be pulled into the garage on the right-hand side, as it always was. When she got there, she'd pull up on the left so he'd have room to get around her. In the morning, after he'd gone to work, she'd back out and move her car to let her mom's car out. Regular as clockwork. Just like that, she found herself pulling to a stop outside one of the houses on the right side of the street. A blue Studebaker was parked in front of the closed two-car garage. Ashley's house. Marina's mind was far too distracted to process the details of what was going on. She knew Ashley thanked her again, told her to have a good night. She gave an automatic good night in response. The hug was less expected, but no less automatically reciprocated. She blinked a little as she saw Ashley disappearing into the front of her house. She started to sit back up, ready to finish the 100 or so feet of driving to get home, but something nettled at the back of her neck. She stopped and grabbed at her neck, found a small white feather in the collar of her shirt. Gave Marina pause. She smiled softly, suddenly feeling less like this was another chore, another ordeal just done to distract herself from the problems of her life. She rolled the end of the feather between her thumb and forefinger, then pulled down the sun visor above the driver's seat and slid the feather into a portion of cloth pocket behind it. Lionel gave a momentary greeting to his mother in the living room. She shouted back to him, something over the volume of her latest binge watch of a television show that she wanted to talk about with him. He knew he'd hear the recap in the near future. As per usual, he tuned it out. He'd be watching the same episodes as her before the night went out, and he'd be caught up, remembering it more than she would. He was in his room, tapping out his password for his screensaver, before he'd hung his keys on the wall. 1.3 seconds later, it prompted another password. His failsafe was still in place. He dropped his backpack beside his bed, tapped out a series of keys that let his computer know it was really him, before he typed in his password on the prompt. If he hadn't hit the series of 5 keys before typing the password, the whole thing was set to self-erase. Twice. It would mean a lot of research done in his personal time would be lost. However, it would be better than letting all of his work fall into the hands of someone who would take credit for it over him. Or worse, they could use it for something terrible. The safeguards would have to remain in place if he wanted to have any peace of mind when it came to the projects he was working on. As the computer finished booting up, dozens of windows flitted across the screen, progress on his various projects. The windows kept opening, one after another. He noted one showing an error and glanced to the desk on the far side of the room. He grimaced to see that several pieces of a device atop the desk had collapsed into particulate dust. He'd have to try again to rebuild the homemade 3D printer, figure out which pieces had broken and which he could buy. Once the 3D printer was completed, and permanent, he wouldn't have to worry as much about making pieces with his own power, worrying that they might break down at any moment. "Are you trying to look pissed off?" spoke a voice from the headset lying beside his keyboard.
Oh.
He smirked and picked up the headset, setting it in place on his head before adjusting the microphone on it to rest just in front of his mouth. Turning to the webcam hanging from the top of his monitor, his smirk turned into a grin.
Hey, Sleepless Beauty. Did you miss me?
A window popped up on the screen, showing a static image of a feminine-styled cartoon face with its tongue sticking out. The voice, a little gravelly but distinctly female, spoke again. "OMG, you dork! You think I don't have anything better to do on a... What's today?
Sunday.
You think I don't have anything better to do on a Sunday night than talk to you?" she said. Lionel shook his head a little, still smiling.
Well, you were ready to spy on my computer's webcam the moment my computer was active again, in spite of how many security programs I've put on to block non-permitted access to my computer. So, I'm just gonna say, yeah, you don't.
The voice on the other end gave a snorting laugh. As if. The back door I slipped into your system is just set up to give me an alert when it detects you sitting in front of your desk. It's not like I've been waiting for the opportunity to brute force my way into your system and hack your camera all day or anything. Unlike some of us, I do still go to school during the weekdays. Lionel shrugged.
Hey, I got my classes.
High school, I meant. She cut him off. The face on the screen changed to a laughing expression instead of the tongue sticking out.
Yeah, but we both know you could skip all that and start on college. I mean, you're smart enough and you got the time.
The image on the screen flipped through several stages and images, settling on a glare. Yeah, well, I just don't want to. Maybe I enjoy being able to take it easy at the Avalon Academy because of my particular abilities. One of Lionel's hands worked on the keyboard. The other made calming gestures towards the camera.
All right, sorry. I know you're trying to keep it a little more down low than I am.
The image changed to a broad smile with too many teeth. Speaking of down low, how did things go? Find any potentials? He was already busily typing on the keyboard with both hands. In a blur of screens, information was typed up on the people from the meetup. Bobby, Megan, Ashley, Marina. Everything he could have seen as being important was being filled in as quickly as possible.
Honestly, I think I got a strike on my first shot here.
Are you making a bowling reference or a baseball one? Because that...
Bowling.
He spoke, interrupting the girl on the other end of the connection.
As far as first tries go, I think I may have struck gold. Although it will take a little bit of refining before we go ahead with things. We're all set to meet up again next Saturday.
Fuck yeah, the voice cackled. I can't wait, but I know I'll have to.
Yeah, you will.
So then, as long as we're not rushing to get things going, the voice spoke again, you gonna log on and help me with these dailies, or are you going to be a lame ass and go to bed early again? Lionel shook his head with a smile and closed out the dossier windows he'd opened. A moment later, the login screen for an MMO popped onto the screen, various other tasks and projects being shunted to the background.
My first thing tomorrow ain't until noon, so I could stand a few hours of grinding right now.
Hell yeah! There's a new armor set for grinding rep with the Falcon emissaries, so let's work on that. Bobby's car rolled into her family's driveway, pulling up on the right side of her mother's silver Corolla. She pulled up the parking brake and almost opened the door of the car. She stopped and pulled down her sun visor, looking up into the mirror behind. Well, that could have been embarrassing, she mumbled and slid the red-haired fall off of her head. She pulled out a wig bag from her glove box and stowed the false hair. Using her fingers to comb out tufts of short, slightly curled, mousy brown hair, she fixed her real hair into its usual pixie bob shape. A moment later, she wiped the foundation hiding her freckles from her face with some things from the purse lying mostly unused in her passenger seat. Lastly, she took a moment to remove the contacts from her eyes, thumbing the colored lenses into a container of solution for them and tucked it into the unused ashtray in her car. Adjusting her mirror, she checked to make sure her eyes weren't red from the contacts, looking close to see if any of the green from the lenses had stained her brown eyes. She had heard some strange stories about non-prescription colored lenses before. Once she confirmed, several times, that her eyes were still the right color, she blew a sigh through her lips and opened the door to her car to head inside of her family's split-level house. As soon as she opened the door, the smell of bacon and tomato sauce wafted toward her. "Hey, hon," she heard her mom call from the living room. "There's pizza in the kitchen." Bobby couldn't help but smile. She missed when her mom would cook more, but being a single parent was demanding enough without having to cook every night. "Thanks, Ma," she called back, piling a few pieces onto a plate in the kitchen before joining her mother in the living room. Bobby fell into a spot on the couch. Her mother, Caroline Berg, was curled up in the big easy chair across the coffee table from the couch. Her hair was soft and wavy, almost a match to the curls on the ends of Bobby's hair, but with a tinge of red hue. Bobby had always been a little sad that she hadn't gotten her mother's hair color, but her eyes were the same chocolate brown shade as Bobby's natural eye color, and that was a feature that she was glad she'd inherited. Her mother was lean, bordering on tall, just as Bobby was. The strain of age lines along her mouth that hadn't been there just a few years ago gave Bobby a pang of guilt, highlighted as they were by the flashing bluish light of the television. Her mother was watching some crime show or another. Not the most recent, but one Caroline had recorded on the DVR. "How was your meetup thing tonight?" Bobby's mom said, venturing a glance at Bobby with a weary smile. "Did you have fun?" Bobby smiled back at her mom and nodded. "More than I thought I would, actually." "Oh, good," Caroline said, turning back to the television. "I'm always glad to see you socializing with people outside of that motorsports club at your school." "More like a wannabe auto mechanics club," Bobby corrected her without any annoyance in her voice. "And me hanging out with the other grease monkeys has saved us both a lot of money on vehicle maintenance, you know." Her mom smirked at that. "I know, honey. I'm just worried that the boys in that club only want to be around you because you're pretty." Bobby let out a snort of laughter. "Shut up, Mom." The evening wore on quietly. Bobby watched television with her mom. When they changed the channel back to live television, Jack Dunn was doing an interview on some evening show to promote a movie about his time as a private detective in the 1950s. Bobby's younger brother, Brian, came home an hour after she had and joined in on the pizza and TV. Another hour and the family began getting ready for bed. Nothing out of the ordinary. A strange contrast to the talk of powers and abilities just hours ago, still fresh in Bobby's mind. And yet, this contrasting of events had helped make everything in Bobby's life seem just a little bit better. A little more normal.
End of chapter 3.